So thank you everyone for your interest in this topic. The myth we're going to be discussing today is that when collecting mobile data, iOS and Android data and people are the same, and so you do not need to worry about representing both Android and iOS populations in your mobile research data. So to bust this myth or call this myth true, we went about collecting and comparing data in 3 different ways. The first thing we did was a recurring market sizing study in the US and the UK to measure the demos by device. The second thing that we did was execute a 1,200 person attitudinal survey in both the US and the UK parallel, looking at attitudes and psychographics by Android versus iOS users. And the third thing we did was look at our behavioral data. So the slide that you see in front of you now is the results of the research. The first thing that we found is that in the US and in the UK at this point, 91% of the smartphone owners have either an Android or an iOS. So most of the population is covered in those 2 operating systems. There are 9% of the population that have something else at this point. So then in the middle column, you'll see the attitudinal information that we collected. The first 4 sections are the attitudinal pieces, and the last 2 sections where the shopping cart are in that middle piece are the behavioral. So what you'll see there is that iOS users, based on this parallel study, are more likely to say that they're comfortable around people, talk to lots of people at parties, admire people with expensive devices and things around them. They think the things that they own say a lot about them. They feel they are trendier. They find new products to be exciting. They buy new and different products. They pay more to try new products. They're particular about their brands used. They're devastated if their phone was lost. It's important to them for entertainment. It's used to avoid being bored. And then when we looked at the behavioral data, they use their device more than Android users for researching products, for shopping, for purchasing products, for playing games, listening to music, and recording videos. And there were more differences. These are the ones that we felt had the most importance to marketing research. Android users were more likely to say that they do not care about brand names. They try to keep their life simple as far as possessions are concerned. They tend to watch shows or movies on TV. They talk on their phone, and they use navigation on their phone. So they were more likely to be slightly behaviorally different. So looking at this attitudinally and behaviorally, we found that differences do indeed exist between Apple and Android users. And they exist attitudinally and behaviorally, but they also exist demographically. If you look at the bottom, the demographic profiles for the Android user are that they tend to be more ethnic, they tend to be lower income, less likely to be married, and more male. And then when you look at the Apple users, more female, more likely to be married, higher income, more fluent, and then more likely to be Caucasian. So what we did was we also looked at this data weighted. When you go out and you do a mobile research, you're likely to get the groups that you need from each device. So if you can find the ethnics on the Android, perhaps get more ethnics on an Android. So we looked at it just simply based on census. If we were to just collect census population for Android and compare it to census population for iOS users, what would that look like? And we saw these differences. But we also wanted to make sure if we controlled for the demos and we weighted the demos so that they were comparable between the 2, do the differences go away? And they did not go away. These differences that you see here stayed differences even when the demos were head-to-head on attitudes and behaviors. So not only are there demographic differences, attitudinal differences, and behavioral differences, but the differences you see here and the way they approach buying, the way they're willing to spend more, are important, highly relevant to marketing research data, where oftentimes we're specifically looking to understand product adoption, buying choices, purchase triggers. So based on the demographic differences that we saw in the recurring market sizing, the behavioral differences that we see in our behavioral metering data, and the attitudinal differences we see when doing an attitudinal survey head-to-head, weighted and unweighted, we have determined that this myth is busted, that it is important that you include both audiences in any mobile research data that you execute.